Okay, so we can go ahead and begin this. Hopefully I'll still have some good material to work with. I think I'll be fine. I see right now we are currently live. Everything is set up. Got my audience prepared. Should be all ready and set. And we can now go and begin. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And before I begin, I would just like to start things off and saying thank you for taking the time to actually watch this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And I say that mainly because, well, as you guys probably know, this week, and especially this weekend in general, well, it's been the moment that most people have been waiting for, considering that it was the release of Avengers Endgame, which pretty much is the grand finale of the current story of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm sure the theaters right now, they are freaking flooded with people right now. It's probably like a claustrophobic's nightmare, but I know it's like one of the biggest events of the year, and the box office numbers, I'm sure they are going to show that. In fact, just a little bit of a spoiler for next week, I could actually go and talk about the results of Endgame, because I'm sure we are going to be witnessing history with that. But anyways, with all that said and done, I am actually kind of surprised that despite Endgame being out, that I still have an audience right now watching this, and for that I do want to say thank you for actually checking it out. Like, even though for me, I'm not necessarily all that big into superhero movies and stuff like that, and believe it or not, I still have yet to see Infinity War, so I'm not necessarily in a rush to go and check out Endgame or anything like that, but still, considering that we still have some people, we're all still here together, it still feels great, and I got a great feeling that in this episode, we are all gonna have a great time. So for that, I would like to say thank you. Alright, so with all that said and done though, I would like to ask you guys, are you all ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Chat wall, let me hear it. Are you all ready for this? Now we could take a little bit of a break of like all the Avengers stuff. Now we could go ahead and check out some cartoon news. So are you all ready for that? Let me see. Well, let's see. I am ready. But are you? Yeah, I'm pretty much ready. I'm always ready. Okay, I just want to know if you're ready. That's why I ask. Okay, let's see now. Okay, it looks like we got some people. Yep, people are prepared, people are ready, and we can go ahead and get this one started. So let's go ahead and begin with our first story. And I would like to say right now that for this whole episode in general, there is a little bit of an interesting theme going on where I noticed that things are going to be leaning a little bit more sci-fi, especially some of the more recognizable sci-fi stuff right over here. And I can definitely say that with our first story, I am definitely going to go and prove that correctly. So let's go ahead and start things off with Nickelodeon's Star Trek series. Yes, CBS Television Studios and Nickelodeon has officially greenlit a brand new animated series that is going to be based on Star Trek. Reading from my source here in Variety, it has stated that in terms of what it's going to be about, the new CG animated series will follow a group of lawless teens who discover a derelict Starfleet ship and use it to search for adventure, meaning, and salvation. And so far, the big thing that we know about this series in general, especially who is going to be involved, apparently the showrunners is actually going to be the Hegman brothers, Kevin and Dan, which these are the guys who have been heavily involved with DreamWorks Troll Hunters and also Ninjago, Masters of Spinjitzu. And on top of that, we got several companies that are going to be working on this series, not just with Nickelodeon and CBS Television, but also iAnimation Productions, which is going to be the animation division of CBS. We also got Secret Hideout and Roddenberry Entertainment. We also received some quotes from some of the executive producers and the people who are going to be working there as well. One of which in particular is going to be from Alex Kurtzman, who is also an executive producer of this Star Trek series, and he says, Star Trek's mission is to inspire generations of dreamers to build a brighter future. Dan and Kevin have crafted a story that honors its exploratory spirit in a way that's never been done before. While the Nickelodeon team blew us away with their excitement at bringing Trek to a younger generation around the world. Now, just want to say right now, though, that keep in mind that this is not going to be the only upcoming series related to Star Trek, because slowly but surely CBS is slowly developing a plot, basically a whole plan, in order to really bring Star Trek's popularity back up, especially when we got a massive head start with the J.J. Abrams films, you know, like the Star Trek reboot, Into the Darkness and Beyond and all that kind of stuff. But now we are going to get a lot more series. We already did have Star Trek's Discovery on All Access, but also we got some other upcoming stuff, like a spin-off of Star Trek Discovery based on Michelle Yeoh's character. We also got an upcoming series based on Captain Jean-Luc Picard, which you guys know is played by Patrick Stewart, although I don't think he is reprising his role of it, but it is going to be about Picard. And interestingly enough, this is not the only upcoming animated series of Star Trek that they have. It says here also that Access is also going to have a brand new animated series that's going to be geared a lot more towards adults called Star Trek Lower Decks, which is going to be brought to us by one of the writers of Rick and Morty, Mike McMahon, or Mike McMahon. It's one of the two that he's pronounced, so I'll say both just in case. And it says that Lower Decks will target a more mature audience and focus on the support crew serving on one of the Starfleet's least important ships. So basically, this is the Adult Swim version of Star Trek. That's what Lower Decks is going to be about, especially with the factor that they did get one of the writers of Rick and Morty to go and work on this. So that's basically the big plan that is currently going on with Star Trek, is that Nickelodeon is soon going to get a brand new animated series, and hopefully they could be giving this the same treatment as they have done so far with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, to bring it back to the mainstream and reintroduce the brand to a brand new generation and to younger audiences everywhere. So that's essentially the goal with what they want to do with Star Trek and this new animated series. Now, what is very interesting to note is that I've noticed that so far, what they want to do with Star Trek here, it reminds me something that is very similar to what they have, well, not what they have, but what was previously done with Star Wars, is that we're at the point where Star Trek, now they're pretty much going to go and follow the footsteps of Star Wars in order to really pick themselves back up in terms of popularity. Especially with this new computer animated series that's going to be geared towards a younger audience, I feel like with this one right over here, they're going to do something that could be similar to what has already been done with Star Wars Rebels, and especially Star Wars The Clone Wars, which Clone Wars, essentially, you could tell that it's a series that is massively successful, spanning for over, like, 7 to 8 seasons, and it's still going on. Like, it's so popular that right after the series was officially done, Disney decided that they're going to bring it back once Disney Plus is on board, and the new seasons and the new episodes are going to be Disney Plus exclusive. So that's kind of the big thing that they want to do with that. And hopefully, that's what they want to do with Star Trek, is that hopefully they can go and replicate the results of what Star Wars Clone Wars has done, but now with Star Trek, where they can show Star Trek to a younger audience so that they can be introduced to the world of Star Trek and the Enterprise and all those things. So that's basically what they want to try to do with Star Trek and what I think could essentially be the goal here. And I will say right now, even though we don't necessarily know a whole lot, I mean, sure, they're going to have a brand new cast that's going to be featured, but one optimistic thing that I do see is actually going to be from the showrunners that are going to be involved, especially with Kevin and Dan Hegman, because I've heard a lot of great things so far from these guys. Now, even though the only two animated series that they are mostly prominent and mostly well known for are being the guys who are major key players behind stuff like Troll Hunters and Ninjago, honestly, so far with the things they have worked on, it seems pretty positive. Like, they have some very strong credentials. I love Troll Hunters. It's a great series, and with their involvement, I mean, they really did spice things up to really make what could possibly be DreamWorks' best animated series that they have developed yet. And even with Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu, the one thing I will say about that is that personally, I have yet to actually see a lot of episodes regarding that. And when it comes to Ninjago, I have heard some very positive things. In fact, the one that I've heard the most praise from is actually someone who I had a special guest star before here. It was I Have Saul. She loves Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu, and I know that she actually is a fan of Kevin and Dan Hegman. She would mention a lot about Ninjago and how it actually is a well-crafted show, and how she has also heard about like many of the behind-the-scenes stuff, not just of the series itself, but also of the Lego Ninjago movie and how that unfortunately ended up becoming a complete disaster. And some people could even say it was the movie that kind of destroyed the Lego movie franchise right there. But yeah, honestly, with the positive things that I've heard so far about Kevin and Dan Hegman, honestly, it feels like the series so far is in good hands. And it seems like they are pretty optimistic, like the people behind it, they are pretty optimistic. So maybe we'll see something that we could expect something great out of it. This could be like something that could bring Star Trek back into massive popularity, almost in the same way that the Star Trek reboot trilogy has recently done. Now, of course, nowadays we don't hear a whole lot about it, and even at that, admittedly, like when you do look back regarding the Star Trek trilogy, or the recent Star Trek trilogy, like, you do get a lot of mixed reactions from there. Like, the third and the first one, so far it seemed pretty good. Like, you don't hear like full-on amazing things about it, but then again, like, you got the second film, and that turned out to be a bit of a mess. Like, I know that there are a lot of people out there, they don't look too highly towards Into the Darkness. Now, I've heard that there could be a fourth film that's coming up, but I'm not 100% sure if they're really going to go forward with it, or if that's still officially a thing. But I guess we'll have to just wait and see on that. But overall, it seems that with Nickelodeon, they got something pretty interesting in their hands. And if the Hegmans can actually make something that could be on par with what they have already delivered with stuff like Troll Hunters and Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu, then I think we're going to expect something great out of this. And so far, we are seeing a slow incline in terms of like the popularity of Star Trek, especially Discovery. So far, it's giving it a bit of a head start, but maybe we will see like a full-on comeback, because after this year, Star Wars is mostly going to take a bit of a break, and they're going to be entering a lot more in the television aspect, more so than the movies as well, since Disney did state that, yes, after episode 9, then they're going to give Star Wars movies a full-on break, and then they're going to focus on all the Disney Plus stuff like The Mandalorian and the I forgot the name of the guy, the Cassian series, like one of the main characters of Rogue One. Like, he's got to have his own show, so Disney Plus is going to be mostly the new home of Star Wars right after Episode 9 would go and hit. So from there, it could give more of a leeway for Star Trek to go and like come back and get the spotlight all over again. When they would have like not just the Nickelodeon series, but also with more episodes of Discovery and even Lower Decks as well. And on top of that, there's also one more thing I would like to add is that when it comes to Star Trek, they do actually have a history when it comes to animation as well. Now, of course, we mostly know Star Trek as a live-action production with both television and movies, but there was at one point when they did enter into animation, and that was back in the early 1970s with Star Trek, the animated series, in which they would mostly focus on the original cast, like the first original Star Trek cast with Captain Kirk, Sulu, Scotty, Spock, and all those guys. So there was that before, but then again, like when you do look back at that show, that one, it's like the kind that it really does amp up the corniness in a way. It's a lot like those animated series back in the 60s and the 70s where they want to try to take themselves seriously, but because of the very limited animation and like the tone of it, it really does come out to feel extremely cheesy and extremely corny. It really does go into that levels, like where you watch it and it's near impossible to take it seriously and you just have fun with whatever weird and crazy adventures that they would present. But again, this is just to go and emphasize that this is not necessarily the first time that we've seen Star Trek enter into an animated realm, and it's interesting to see them return to that, especially with both the Nickelodeon series and also with Lower Decks as well. So this is honestly pretty cool to see them expand with what they can do with the Star Trek universe, and maybe we will see more animated Star Trek stuff in the future. Like if this really does launch off very successfully, and if Star Trek really does get into the same levels of success that we've seen from Star Wars Clone Wars, then maybe like this isn't just beneficial for the franchise itself, but maybe also Nickelodeon can have something to really level itself up that can also really challenge Cartoon Network as well. So they might have something really huge in their arsenal, and they might be up to something that they can deliver a massively wide variety of content, including not being afraid to really enter into a little more seriously in terms of the sci-fi element and go with Star Trek. Now, I know this is not their first time going into sci-fi either, especially with Jimmy Neutron, but a lot of those are really more into the comedy aspect. Like, a lot of it, they would go and play for gags, but with Star Trek, though, like, maybe they will dive a bit into the comedy. I mean, with Troll Hunters and Ninjago, like, there are a lot of funny moments, and I mean, there are times when they don't necessarily take themselves seriously, but, like, I'm sure that this Star Trek series will take itself more seriously than something like Jimmy Neutron, so that I can be guaranteed with. But yeah, overall, I will say that so far, with the Hagmans involved with this, I do feel like they might have something good here. I feel like Nickelodeon might have a pretty strong animated series in their hands. Now, in terms of the release date, I don't necessarily know when it's officially going to be coming out. They don't have a specific release date, and considering that this is going to be a computer animated series, we're not going to see this for like a long time. It could be probably a few years. Like at the earliest, maybe we'll see the first episode by 2021 or even 2022. I think that's what they also confirmed for Lower Decks as well. Here, let me just double check on that. I think they even said that it's not going to be until a while. Did they? I'm checking another Variety article just to double check if they have a confirmed release date for it. And no, they didn't say. Okay, so they didn't necessarily say just yet, but that is at least my prediction. But yeah, this looks like it could be pretty good. So I guess we'll wait and see with what Nickelodeon has in store with Star Trek. Okay, and with that said, right now, let us go into the chat wall right over here, and let's go and ask you guys, what do you all think about, hold on a sec, just want to make sure, yeah. I see there was someone that was just trolling a bit, so just gotta make sure I gotta clear that. Anyways, getting back into the situation, chat wall, what do you all think about the animated series of Star Trek? Do you guys think that this could have a lot of potential? Do you have any doubts for it? And if you are a Star Trek fan, let me know your thoughts if you would be interested in a series like this, or even if you're a non-fan, if you think this could actually be something that could help you reintroduce the Star Trek series. Let me all know what you think, guys. All right. Oh boy, so far I'm not getting much yet. So far everybody is just like, thank you for getting rid of the troll! Alright guys, that's nice. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let me know what you think. Let's see. I wonder what Linkara would think about the show. Oh, that would actually be pretty good. I mean, like, I know that Linkara is actually a very big Trekkie. Like, he's a huge Star Wars fan, so... knowing this from his perspective, I would be pretty intrigued. Oh, but we do have some comments, so, okay, let's see now. This is the first piece of Nickelodeon news where I said, wait, huh? It's a very strange brand to pick up from a new animated series. It's gonna be fairly better than The Wonder Park, though. I thought the movie was extremely average, but I'm not hopeful for the show. Yeah, and considering that Wonder Park is so far bombing at the box office, I don't know if the series is even going to be a thing or not, so that we'll have to wait and see. But I do understand your perspective that it is kind of unusual that out of all things, like Nickelodeon would go and pick up Star Trek. I know it sounds unusual, but then again, I can imagine that there are some people out there who would probably say this. They would say the same thing when Nickelodeon picked up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So it could be the same case. Who knows? Let's see now. Do we have other comments? Oh, yes. Let's see. I've never been a Star Wars fan because I always pass it off as a Star Wars ripoff. I'm that one person who is never open to reboots or, wait, this is a new series of a reboot? Otherwise, I might give this series a chance. Still hoping it's better than the stuff that's airing on Nickelodeon right now, like freaking SpongeBob. Okay, I'm just gonna say right now, though, you cannot say that Star Trek is a ripoff of Star Wars. Because the thing is, Star Trek came first. Star Trek came out in the 60s. Star Wars came out in the late 70s, so... yeah, I suggest you don't say things like that publicly because you're gonna get in massive trouble. So just a little bit of a warning right over there. But if this series can make you open for it, then, that's definitely great. Let's see now. Sorry, I don't know how that came out. Although I'm not a Star Trek fan since I've never seen much of the television shows and older movies, I've only seen the J.J. Abrams rebooted trilogy, and I like them since it kind of introduced me of what Star Trek is about. For the new series on Nickelodeon, I don't know how I would that interesting to check it out, but I could recommend this to my mom since she loved the franchise so much. I bet she might like it, and it could have some potential. I'll just wait and see. I mean, it could be something that you and your mom can bond over and check out Star Trek for yourselves. I mean, this is not necessarily going to be something that's going to connect to a whole lot of like the older shows and stuff like that. I can imagine with this, it's mostly going to be its own thing. It's not necessarily going to be connecting itself a whole lot with like the reboot or anything like that. It mostly wants to be its own addition to the Star Trek franchise, if you know what I mean. A little bit like Star Wars Rebels or Rogue One, a Star Wars story. More in those lines that it's mostly made to be its own thing, but it does help to really expand the whole universe that it laid upon us. Do we have any others? Just want to go and double check. Even though I haven't seen Star Trek, I'm interested in this. At least it is good, unlike the Rugrats revival, and the movie got the director of Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies. Oh god, may God have mercy when that thing is gonna come out. Personally, I'm not all that excited for it either. Yeah. Let's see. I'm looking forward to the new Star Trek series. I wasn't a big fan of the older Star Treks as a kid. I grew up with the J.J. Abrams reboots films. I have not seen Discovery because I can't pay for another streaming service, but I'm giving the two series a chance. Oh, okay, both the Nickelodeon one and Lower Decks. Well, I mean, if you're not going to get All Access, then you're not going to get Lower Decks because that one is more exclusive to All Access. So, yeah, you're probably going to have more luck with the Nickelodeon series. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all good for this one in particular. Now it is going to be time that we are going to go and move on to our next story. And this one, I'm going to be very honest with you guys, I am honestly shocked to see this again. Because out of all the stories that we have talked about in the last episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, I'm surprised to see this one have a massive comeback throughout this week. And bigger than ever before. And believe it or not, the story that I'm talking about is regarding this little article here. You guys may remember last week when I would talk about this article from the Boardwalk Times, where it has claimed that not just Song of the South, but the crow scene from Dumbo would be completely taken out of Disney Plus, that they're pretty much going to be removing it, and they're going to be heavily editing Dumbo so that they won't have any mentions whatsoever of the whole Jim Crow scene, or just have the crows be there in general. And I have already expressed my opinions on this rumor, and I pretty much thought that, yeah, while it's obvious that Song of the South won't be on Disney Plus, I feel like there would be no way in hell that the crow scene would be removed from Dumbo, especially when it is such an essential and important part of the movie that would ultimately lead to the climax. And admittedly, I was pretty hard on the Boardwalk Times for spreading what seems to be such false information. But apparently, throughout this week, it went viral and bigger than it ever did, because honestly, one thing that I was really surprised about when I was just looking around social media, apparently everything changed when the Hollywood Reporter went and picked it up. And I just got to make sure I need to go and reload this just to see if there's any new updates about this. Nope, it doesn't seem to be the case. But yeah, apparently what happened was that this week, the Hollywood Reporter decided to go and pick up the Boardwalk Times story and state that, yeah, apparently it looks like there's not going to be Song of the South, neither the crow scene from Dumbo. And they even put out that it was from Boardwalk Times. They would source them twice over here. In fact, I'll just read you a little excerpt from the Hollywood Reporter, as it would state right over here. The company also doesn't plan to include a scene from the 1941 animated film Dumbo featuring a crow named Jim Crow, a reference to a 19th century blackface character that later became the name of the segregation laws enacted following the Reconstruction era. The scene also does not appear in Tim Burton's live-action remake of the original animated pick. Boardwalk Times also first reported the scene's absence. So that's the thing. Literally the only source that this Hollywood Reporter article claimed that this came from is just here, from the Boardwalk Times. Like, literally, this is the source of all the news that you keep hearing about there. And from that news, this would also result into plenty of other news that would just go ahead and just explode. Like, it's not just the Hollywood Reporter, because after that pretty much gives the signal to everyone else to go and pick it up. And that's where you would see a lot of more prominent and more trustworthy websites and news articles where they would go and pick it up, rather it be like The Guardian or CBR.com or comicbook.com and all those different websites and all those popular websites where they would go and pick it up, stating that, yeah, it looks like this seems to be the case. And I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that out of all the Out of all the websites out there, The Hollywood Reporter, which has often been credited to be one of the most trustworthy news sources when it comes to entertainment news on television, movies, and all that kind of stuff, that they would go and pick this one up directly from the Boardwalk Times. And it just left me shocked. Like, I saw this and I was like, wait, you got this? Are you freaking kidding me? Like, honestly, I almost felt like maybe I could be wrong in this case. Like, I was at the point where I almost felt like maybe I would have to admit defeat, and maybe this could turn out to be true. This, maybe this article, it could actually say something that could be real, and I could be wrong with the things that I have said last time. But honestly, from there, I also feel like maybe that it could be at the point where I would have to give out an apology to Boardwalk Times, because admittedly, there's no hiding that when I went and discussed about this article right over here in the last episode, I was harsh as hell. I was attacking the Boardwalk Times pretty hard in what I believe to be a fake news story, especially with the element of Dumbo. So maybe I was wrong, and like the Boardwalk Times was probably speaking the truth right over here. That was something that I was honestly afraid of doing. I was honestly afraid that it was like, oh God, am I wrong? Could this actually be it? Like, honestly, it freaked me out. However, in this case right over here, I just would like to point out though, that even though this news really went viral, even though we are at the point where like a whole bunch of news articles have been talking about this story regarding the absence of Song of the South and the crow scene from Dumbo, it is still a rumor. We gotta keep in mind that it is still a rumor, and that there is nothing that's necessarily confirmed about this whole situation. Because honestly, if there is one thing another thing that actually does shock me about this whole scenario, about the virality of this news, is actually the fact that we have yet to hear from Disney. Disney has yet, because by the time that I am recording this episode, by the time that you are listening to this right now, Disney has yet to actually come out and make a confirmation regarding if any of this would actually be true. If that both Song of the South and the crow scene from Dumbo have been completely taken out of Disney Plus. We have yet to actually hear from them. And honestly, that just seems weird. Like considering the virality of this, considering that it had a lot of people talking, considering the controversy behind this news, you'd think Disney would actually go and step in and actually, they would actually go and say something to go and try to clear the air about the scenario. But why have they yet to actually say something? Well, honestly, it's actually regarding one piece of news, and what I think seems to be the case, now it is possible that maybe they're just too busy and they don't necessarily care, but I feel like the reason why we have yet to hear from Disney is mainly because if they have to address this, then that would mean they would have to address Song of the South. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, why does it seem that bad? Well, the thing is that Disney is trying their absolute best in order to avoid Song of the South at all costs. I don't think there's any hiding so far of the fact that Disney wants to make sure that the public completely forgets about Song of the South and the fact that it would ever exist. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, why is it that people still remember characters like Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear, and especially with all the songs like Zippity Doo-Dah and Laughing Place? Well, that's mainly because Disney wants to try to go and shift the focus onto saying that, oh, well, they all come from Splash Mountain. Considering that Splash Mountain is one of the most beloved and most popular attractions at a Disney park, like they would say that, oh, well, they all come from there. They're no different than Yo Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me, or One Little Spark, or like the characters are no different than Figment or the Hitchhiking Ghost. They all come from the Disney parks. Like that's the big goal that they want to try to make with the characters and the songs of the Song of the South, they want to try to make it a Splash Mountain thing more so than an actual Song of the South thing. And if they would have, and going back into this news, however, if they try to bring it back, then it would mean they would have to re-acknowledge their existence. And it even stated here in this article of The Hollywood Reporter that the last time that the company would officially speak out about the scenario is actually back in 2011, about 8 years ago, during their annual meeting with Bob Iger. It actually states here, Disney CEO Bob Iger spoke out about the decision during the company's 2011 annual meeting, saying that after a rewatch of the film, he felt parts of it wouldn't necessarily sit right or feel right to a number of people today, and that it wouldn't be in the best interest of our shareholders to bring it back, even though there would be some financial gain. So the whole scenario here is that he doesn't care if it would be popular. He doesn't care if like a DVD and Blu-ray and digital release of Song of the South would actually even make Disney some major profits, maybe even as much as like Avengers Endgame or all the Marvel movies and Star Wars movies and stuff like that. He doesn't care. Like Bob Iger has no interest whatsoever in putting it back up. Like, they don't want Song of the South to be back in the spotlight, and they have been doing this for a few decades now, and it doesn't look like they're gonna go and change their mind on that. And again, bear in mind, that was 8 years ago that they would ever have to acknowledge the existence of Song of the South. And nowadays, they're still pretty silent, and what they're afraid of right now is that if they have to come up and talk about this whole scenario, then that would also mean that they would have to go and acknowledge Song of the South's, like the existence of Song of the South, and would have people talking about Song of the South all over again. Which, in a way, yeah, technically throughout this week, it did happen because of the virality of this news. Like, we do see a little bit of people talking about the whole controversy of Song of the South all over again, and if people want to actually see it or not. And even if Disney does come up and discuss about Song of the South and stuff like that, there are like, either way, there will, like, whatever they say, it will still upset a few people. Because there are some people that do legitimately believe that when Disney stated that all their classics are going to be on Disney Plus, some people think that literally means that all their classics are going to be on Disney Plus, including Song of the South. Like, that's probably, for a few significant people, that's probably one reason why they want to get Disney Plus, to see if Song of the South would even exist in Disney Plus. That's what they really want to go and see. But in this case right over here, honestly, I still feel the same way. I highly doubt that, regardless of the outcome here, there's no way that Song of the South is going to be on Disney Plus no matter what. But I'm just going to say right now, like, let's say hypothetically, if this is all true, that if it turns out that Boardwalk Times is actually correct on this scenario, and that they are going to remove Song of the South and the Crow scene from Dumbo. Now, on that aspect right over there, I would have to say that, okay, when it comes to Song of the South, I really don't care. I've seen the movie, I thought it was just okay, and I know, like, I think it is pretty obvious that they're not going to do it. Like I said before, like, they had no interest in re-releasing Song of the South on home media or whatever, and it's still not going to change today, especially with Disney Plus. But when it comes to the Crow scene, if it is true that they're going to completely remove it, my God, is it pathetic and absolutely stupid. And not only in a narrative standpoint, considering of all the important scenes that happened during that time with the Crows, especially with the element that this is where we learn Dumbo can fly, and where we have some pretty popular songs, and where Dumbo got the magic feather, and all that kind of stuff. But even I would have to agree that censoring the Crow scene and try to take that out, it honestly feels like it's PC culture going a little bit too far. Now, when it comes to the whole PC culture aspect, and when it comes to censoring some things in order to adapt it to our modern times, usually I would be a little bit more understanding about the scenario. Like, if you would have to go and try to change a few things up, or maybe cut a few seconds of something, or just take out a minor character, mainly because of, like, controversies related to racism, or sexism, homophobia, or xenophobia, or Islamophobia, or anything like that, then at that point, that I can understand. But when it comes to the Dumbo scene right over here, I would feel like, okay, that's just taking it too far and really kind of destroying the foundation of the whole movie itself. It just honestly does not make sense to do so whatsoever, and it would just kind of ruin the whole movie, especially for a film that is literally just an hour long. Like, you cut out the crow scene, like, you're just gonna have, like, 55 minutes of, like, the whole feature, and the ending, it's just gonna feel absolutely weird, where suddenly it's like, hey, look, Dumbo can magically fly for some reason. Where did he get this feather? And all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't make sense. And I feel like, honestly, we're not gonna learn if we take this form of censorship a little bit too far. Honestly, it's best to just keep it and have people talk about it so that we could learn, more so than just completely opting it out, pretending like it doesn't exist. So that's honestly the aspect where I feel like it would go a little bit too far. But again, honestly, we have to go and keep this as a rumor, because technically there is no official confirmation on this element. We have yet to know if it is true or not, and maybe Disney is still going to keep their silence, and people will have to wait and see until November 12th, when it first comes out in America with the whole Disney Plus streaming service. And if Disney is still silent, then I'm sure that for many people, the first thing they're going to go and check out is the classic Dumbo movie, to go and see if it is true that they completely removed the crow scene, or if it's actually just there. But either way, I feel like one or two outcomes are going to happen in this scenario. It's either A, that it's either this is true and Disney is going to be facing some serious backlash against it, or it could turn out to be false and Boardwalk Times is going to be in serious trouble. Like, you got to keep in mind, considering the massive virality, and that you got big articles like The Hollywood Reporter and The Guardian who have picked up the story and spread it out like it's like some kind of fact. If this turns out to be false, then the integrity of this website is seriously in trouble. Like, the people who wrote the articles in here, the website itself, they are gonna be screwed, because you gotta keep in mind, folks, actions have consequences. And when we figure out the whole truth of the scenario, then it's either gonna be Disney that's gonna be in major crap, or it's gonna be Boardwalk Times that's gonna be in major crap. But honestly, overall, I am honestly just worried about the whole scenario with Dumbo. Like, Song of the South, okay, yeah, we can live without it on Disney Plus, but if it's true about the element of Dumbo, man, it's gonna be honestly, it's gonna be discouraging and pretty disappointing to hear that Disney would stoop that low to go and do that. Okay, so now that I've expressed my thoughts on that, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to know, what do you guys think about the updated scenario about Disney Plus and what could happen with Song of the South and Dumbo? Do you guys think this could actually be true? Do you guys still think that this is false? Let me know what you all think of this. Okay, hold on a sec. There we go. Let's see. The signature edition of Peter Pan kept the Native American scene, so it doesn't make sense. Oh, it does make sense why Disney would re-edit Dumbo. Warner Brothers always makes a disclaimer that their old war cartoons are products of their time. When released on DVD, why can't Mickey Mouse do the same? Yeah, oh boy. Now, I can tell you right now that if there's one thing that Warner Brothers was very smart in doing, is actually putting up that major disclaimer on their old DVDs and Blu-rays and all that kind of stuff. Because at that point, that's one major thing that also got trending related to this news. Whenever you would go on social media and someone would bring up this article and go and discuss about this, you're always going to have at least that one person who would bring up that disclaimer from Warner Brothers whenever they would present like a Speedy Gonzales cartoon, or when they would present, like the comment said right over here, that like they would show an old World War II cartoon, that it was a product of its time. And yeah, it would honestly be really awesome if Disney would actually go and do that. Even like if they would do that with Song of the South, that would actually be great. But yeah, honestly, it is kind of interesting to see that being constantly brought up. Let's see, what's our next comment? Long ago, news of Song of the South and the Crow scenes lived together in harmony, but then everything changed when the Hollywood Reporter attacked. Anyways, I'm not really upset nor excited. Whoa, excuse me. I'm not really excited nor upset about this news. I've never seen Song of the South, though I would probably be curious. I would probably watch it out of curiosity if it ever appeared on Disney Plus. And I haven't seen Dumbo in a long time, so I can't really be all that upset about the Crows. Theoretically, I think it's for the best that Disney removes these from the stress. Oh boy. Oh, that's an interesting one. I gotta say, that is interesting. Let's see. Shame that Song of the South doesn't have an official release, and yet Birth of a Nation is allowed to be released, and that film is notoriously known for its positive portrayal of the KKK. Yeah, that is definitely true, but the thing is that we're talking about a recent release. Because, like, before Michael Eisner, I would definitely say, like, before Michael Eisner came into the scene, or after the massive success of Splash Mountain, or after the big boom of home media and VHSs and all that kind of stuff, like, Disney would have no problem when it comes to re-releasing stuff like Song of the South. Like you would see Song of the South have a lot of re-releases in theaters, and while in its initial release it was controversial, like there was still that big period between, I would say, the 50s and the 80s, where Song of the South was viewed no differently than any other of the Disney classics, where Song of the South, you know, it was the same thing as like Cinderella or Bambi or Dumbo or Fantasia or Snow White and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, like nowadays, I don't think people right now would be interested in re-releasing Birth of a Nation, especially when we are seeing an upsetting rise of white nationalism. Like, yeah, honestly, I think, like, people would be more lenient to watching Song of the South more so than they would want to watch Birth of a Nation. Like, I can guarantee you right now, Song of the South would have a release before Birth of a Nation. Alright, let's see. Do we have any other comments? Just want to see. It's a real shame, since for me, if anything, I've yet to still watch to see these films. Like, I know for a factor it's the most controversial film from Disney, but they can't pretend that this film doesn't exist. It's getting more of a cult following, and yet it did came up with the Disney sing-along tapes with actual footage from the film, and show that even the songs are more famous than the film. And for Dumbo, if it's going to be too much, then just don't put it in Disney Plus and just buy the movie. Yeah, I do see your point, definitely. I mean, we are at the point that, honestly, if you're not going to put Dumbo for the crow scene, then just don't show Dumbo, period. I feel like, considering that the crow scene is too important for Dumbo, it's either, like, put out the whole package or not. But I can definitely guarantee you that when it comes to Disney, they can be stubborn as F. And at that point, they will make sure that they will do their hardest in order to ignore its existence as much as possible. They will try. I can guarantee you that. Let's see. Do we have any other comments? I'll just go and read one more. I think Bob Iger should be ashamed for not allowing us to see Song of the South. Some parts may not have aged well, but at least we might see the whole movie altogether. Oh boy. I didn't see a lot of people. Let's see. Actually, Animated Antic did told us that Disney said that the removing the crow scene from Dumbo is 100% false. Yeah, but where's the source of that? He said that, but where is the actual source? I'm not saying that he's a liar, not at all. I do have respect for Animated Antic, but the thing is that we don't have an official source. Just because one person said that Disney said that, we don't have anything where we actually see that Disney did say that. And considering the virality of this news, we would actually see some kind of updated article. Like, now that The Hollywood Reporter picked it up, like, if Disney said something, then they would make another article in order to go and confirm any of these rumors, if they would actually be true or false. So again, just because like one person said Disney said it's true, I'm not going to confirm anything until we see that Disney said it's true. I'm not, like, honestly, Disney is the only source to go and confirm this scenario. Okay, so with that said, I think we're pretty much all good with this little piece of controversy. And now we can actually go and move on to our next stuff. Now, funny enough, this is actually going to be related to rumors and theories, or more specifically related to major conspiracy theories. And we're going to be diving into a scenario where it could actually be possible that we might enter into a world that all these crazy conspiracy theories might turn out to be true. And this will actually be brought to us by Netflix with an all-new adult animated series called Inside Job. Yes, Netflix has officially revealed of a new series called Inside Job, and it states right over here about the story. And once again, I'm going to be reading from my source here in the Hollywood Reporter, as it says, the 20-episode series is described as a workplace comedy set in the shadow government, where every conspiracy theory from the Illuminati to reptoids is true, and one woman struggles to keep the chaos under wraps. And this series, by the way, is actually going to be brought to us by a woman known as Shion Takeuchi, who's actually a pretty prominent filmmaker and a pretty prominent writer in the animation world. And when you go on her IMDb page, she actually has a lot of different credentials. She actually worked at Pixar at one point as a story artist for Monsters University and Inside Out. And then she would also be credited as a storyboard artist and a writer for Regular Show, and even writing several episodes for shows like We Bare Bears, Lost in Oz, Long Live the Royals, Gravity Falls, and like one of the biggest shows that she worked on, and like the most that she worked on, is Disenchantment, the new series by Matt Groening. But what is also interesting to note is that apparently the Gravity Falls aspect is the one that people are really emphasizing on. Even this article in the Hollywood Reporter, where it even says it's from the Gravity Falls duo. Wait, Gravity Falls duo? I've only mentioned about Shion Takeuchi. Who else is the other person that's working on this? Well, apparently, considering that it is Gravity Falls that they've mentioned, the other person is none other than the creator of Gravity Falls, Alex Hirsch, who is also going to be involved in this project as the executive producer. And I don't know if we don't necessarily have any quotes. The rest is just about just discussing about Netflix and what they want to do in the future, and also the credentials of Takeuchi and all that kind of stuff. But that's the big thing to go and emphasize, is that we got an adult animated series which is based on like all these conspiracy theories. So the best way to go and describe it is more of a unique spin on a series something like The Office or something like that, where, like, yeah, it's going to be like a comedy where we're mostly poking fun at everyday workplaces, like in an office or in an official government building, working on those things, but heavily themed to conspiracy theories. Like, we would live in a world where reptile people, the Illuminati, aliens, and all these different mythical things, and even like the insane conspiracy theories, stuff like Pizzagate, or vaccines cause autism, or like drinking some kind of weird water is making the frogs gay. Like, imagine if all these weird conspiracy theories would actually go and turn out to be true. And what's interesting to go and note here is actually the fact that a lot of people, because of this, they're already dubbing this as the adult Gravity Falls. Not necessarily because, not just because of Shion and Alex's involvement on this project, but also because of the theme. The factor that it really does go into the realm of like myths and legends, but with Gravity Falls, it does lean a little bit more in the fantasy element, where we do see like gnomes and unicorns and minotaurs and all those creatures onto the world of Gravity Falls, but there is a bit of those conspiracy theories that are thrown into it as well. Considering the main antagonist, Bill Cipher, of course, as he is like a big reference to the Illuminati, like he's highly prominent in the show. So the same thing would be Gravity Falls, except the conspiracy theory element would be more prominent in there. And considering that it is more adult, a lot of people are expecting maybe this is going to be like Gravity Falls, but instead of working in a tourist trap in Oregon, they're going to be working in a shadow government. So we will probably still see a bit of those dynamics of like with Grunkle Stan and Wendy and Seuss, but with the characters that are working in that government. And even outside of that, we're also going to go and see like the different mythical creatures and the different elements, but because this is more adult oriented, they can go into more, not necessarily serious subject matter, but more crazy and insane subject matters that they can really dive harder into, and maybe go like all out on it, you know, even going into urban legends, like talking about Mothman or Slender Man and all that kind of stuff. In fact, actually, I remember I do have a book, I do have, it was the comic of Gravity Falls, like the lost episodes, where they would show like a few different stories but in comic form, and I think it was the first story with Dipper and Pacifica, where they would go into this this fantasy black market, where they would go and meet up with all these dark creatures that would make some evil deals. And if you want to get some like black magic or evil curses and stuff like that, you can go and get into that evil black market. And it also does feature a whole bunch of references to some of these conspiracy theories and urban legends. But I feel like that's going to be highly more prominent in this one, and considering that it is more of an adult animated series, they're really gonna go all out on it. And that's one thing that I am excited to see what's going to be happening here, is actually going to be the fact that we are going to be witnessing some of the more adult-oriented stuff by Alex Hirsch, because that's the main reason why Alex Hirsch is on Netflix in the first place. He signed on a deal in order to make animated content that would actually lean more towards adults. I don't know if that would also include family-friendly content, but I know for a fact that adult content are going to be highly prominent from Alex Hirsch while he's going to be working on Netflix, and this is one of the many projects that he will be involved with in order to go and create that. And like I said before, it's going to be interesting to see what is the adult side of Alex Hirsch. Is he going to be more gory? Is he going to be more violent? Is he just going to be going into more swearing? Is he going to add more social commentary onto it? Because it is true that when you do see his Twitter account, or when he goes into social media, he's not necessarily afraid to he's not afraid to call out a lot of the GOP leaders and a lot of the government officials and call out on their prejudice and bigoted garbage, So he could, maybe he'll add more of that kind of content. Maybe he'll be a little bit more sexual with it, like maybe be a little more risque with some of his stuff, but we'll have to wait and see. But it is pretty interesting, and I will say, honestly, with this one, is that when it comes to this series, it does sound pretty interesting. It does sound like it's something that they would have a lot of potential. Maybe people are right. Maybe this could be like the adult version of Gravity Falls, where we're going to see the characters go on some adventures related to the conspiracy theories or urban legends. But at that point, I don't know how this is going to go. But this is going to be a new chapter. This is going to be like a new side of many of these creators, like especially a new side to Alex Hirsch and also Shion Takeuchi, because with her, like, she has done a little bit more adult-oriented content, but not massively. Like, the most adult she really has gone, that is highly prominent, would actually be something like Disenchantment, and that one is more like a general audience kind of thing. That's like the same kind where it would appeal to the same audience as The Simpsons. It's like technically it's for adults, but it's like the kind that, yeah, there's no problem at all if kids could go and watch it. So it's going to be interesting to see what they'll do with this. But yeah, overall, I do feel pretty optimistic with with this show, and maybe this could turn out to be awesome. Again, though, we don't necessarily know when this one is going to be coming out, but I do feel like maybe this could be a series that we'll keep an eye on, and who knows, maybe this could be the next BoJack Horseman. Okay, so with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to go and ask you guys, what do you all think about Inside Job? Is this a series that you guys would be interested to check out? Would you guys give it a pass on it? What do you all think about the idea? Let me know what you think about this show. Alright, let me see what you think, guys. Alright, we don't necessarily have a whole lot yet. I'm sure people are cooking up something. I'm sure people are gonna express their comments or express their thoughts. Let's see. Not yet though. Or maybe people don't have any comments. Okay, I'm honestly kind of surprised, especially the fact that, like, I see there are people who are, oh, wait a minute. Nope, there we go. Oh, there we go. Now we got some people. Let's see. This show seems so interesting. Gravity Falls meets an NBC mockumentary. Heck yeah. I think this show should make fun of Alex Jones and other crazy conspiracy theorists. I bet this show is going to feature characters that use memory wipes on civilians who see strange stuff. The show could be an animation equivalent of the X-Files. My only problem is the title. Oh, honestly, I think at this point, like, there's going to be no surprise that they would actually do some kind of reference to Alex Jones or something like that. I'm sure, like, at least one of the episodes are going to be all about people who would spread insane conspiracy theories and the consequences to that, making fun of people like Alex Jones and other highly prominent far-right YouTubers and many conservative internet personalities, where all they do is just constantly lie and think that they can get away with the consequences to their with their actions, thinking that, oh, there won't be consequences on me. I'm white. I'm conservative. I can do whatever I want. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case, buddy. No, but I'm sure, like, there is going to be at least that one episode that they're going to make fun of Alex Jones. That, I feel like, is going to be a guarantee. Okay, do we have any other comments? I'm excited for Inside Job now that Alex Hirsch will dive into adult territory. He could bring social commentary into the show. And I mean, it is true because, the thing is, what's interesting to note is that when you look at Gravity Falls as well, I mean, he does splice in some social commentary as well. Like, there are some interesting commentary that he would also integrate onto Gravity Falls. Maybe it's not as necessarily obvious, considering that it is a family-friendly show, but in the case of Gravity Falls, yeah, there are, there's a lot of like adult jokes and there's a lot of family friendly content. Or no, there's a lot of adult jokes and a lot of social commentary that he cleverly tried to sneak in. And that's kind of like the beauty of Gravity Falls, is that there's always a piece of mystery that's inside the show. And like, no matter how many times you would rewatch it, there's always something surprising to come out of it with every episode that you would rewatch. All right, let's see now. I'm not really interested since I wasn't a fan of Gravity Falls, but I hope Alex doesn't touch other Netflix shows since I would be mad. He should just stick to adult animation like Inside Job. I mean, I don't know what you mean, like, I don't know if you mean, like, oh, he's suddenly gonna slip into something like Troll Hunters and the whole Tales of Arcadia series and mess that up. I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't know. We'll see what Alex Hirsch has done. I'm a huge fan. I love Gravity Falls. I really like what Alex Hirsch has done so far. So honestly, I wouldn't objectify to anything that he has done so far. So we'll see. Let's see. I'm not really sure for this. I like Gravity Falls, but I'm not exactly into adult-like films or shows. This could be my first to the factor. Who knows? It might be pretty good. Yeah, definitely. Just need to be more open about it. I remember how frustrating it was trying to keep up with the story arc shows when they were aiming in the 90s and early 2000s. You never wanted to miss a single episode. Yeah, that's definitely true. Alright, I think from there, are we all good with that? Yeah, it seems like everybody seems to be pretty fine with this story, so we've expressed our thoughts. Surprise, not many people, at least in this audience, they're not into adult-oriented content, but hey, who knows? This could be a nice series. Just want to double check something. Okay, anyways, I'll deal with that later. Anyways, let's go ahead and go into our next story right over here, in which in this one, we're going to be talking about the Oscars and the new rule changes that they have done. And I know at first when hearing about this, some people might think, oh, hell no. There is no way that any good can come out of this. Because the thing is, especially from last time, whenever the Oscars would go and consider some new changes, at that point, people would be very disgusted about the whole scenario. Because here's the thing. Whenever the Oscars would reveal changes, especially like last time, suggesting things like, what was it? Like, oh yeah, like trying to make a best popular film category, or try to go and skip a few categories to air on TV just to shorten the time. Like, people really did get frustrated, and there was some backlash at it. So yeah, nothing good can really come out when the Oscars would reveal some new rule changes, right? Well, this time, no. This time, it looks like there might be some changes that, especially animation, could actually benefit. So let's go ahead and talk about some of these changes that they have done. Now, first and foremost, let's go ahead and talk about the animated feature category. And the changes that they have done in that is that they have decided that they are no longer going to go and apply to the 8 eligible animated features in the calendar year. That is no longer a requirement. And the main reason for that is because we live in an age where animated features are becoming a lot more prominent. Like, right now, we're getting about, 12 animated features on average annually. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. And especially when you go and count in the other independent animated features that would put their, their chip in the ring. At that point, it doesn't seem like a bit of a requirement. So they decided to opt it out, and they're pretty much confident that, yeah, they'll have enough animated features to have 5 different, to nominate 5 different films for that category. And on top of that, they also stated that for voting the nominations, when it comes to go and vote for the nominations, now it is open to all active members of the short films and feature animation branch. And if there are people outside of that, if there are other members that want to try to put, they want to come in and they want to nominate what should be for best animated feature and stuff like that, then they would go and try to opt in. Like, that is an optional choice that they can come and be participated in there. Now, for the short films category, both for live action and animation, I'm going to go and read this here in my source through Animation Magazine, as it states. In the short film categories, animated and live action short films now have the option to qualify theatrically in either of the city of New York or Los Angeles County to be eligible for submission. The Academy's Board of Governors voted to maintain Rule 2 for the eligibility on the 92nd Oscars. The rules state that to be eligible for award consideration, a film must have at minimum 7-day theatrical run in a Los Angeles County commercial theater with at least 3 screenings per day for paid admission. Motion pictures released in non-theatrical media or on after the film's first day on their Los Angeles County theatrical qualifying run remain eligible. So that's the big thing, because now they're giving them the option, or not really giving them the option. I'll get to that later. Now, other notable changes that they have done also, they decided to go and change the name of Best Foreign Language Film. So now they're going to call it Best International Feature Film. So that's going to be the new name on that. And it also stated that animated and documentary pictures are permitted in this category, and all other rules and eligibility remain the same. And also, one more big change that they have brought up is going to be regarding the best makeup and hairstyling category, where they're going to give more nominations to them. Usually we have seen that for that category there would be 3 nominations. Now they're bumping it up to 5, and for the short list, instead of just 7, they're going to put in 10. And we also got a bit of a quote here coming from the Academy President John Bailey, as he states, "We support the theatrical experience as integral to the art of motion pictures, and this weighed heavily in our decision." And that's mainly talking about the short film category. Our rules... Hold on a sec. There we go. Our rules currently require theatrical exhibitions and also allow for a broad selection of films to be submitted for Oscars consideration. We plan to further study the profound changes occurring in our industry to continue discussions with our members about these issues. And that's the main element to talk about right over here. And as you could probably tell, when it comes to the categories for animation, this is honestly something that they can really take advantage. This is something that seems like actual good news for animation, where for them, it's a lot easier to go and get a nomination to, or at least to enter into the Oscars run to make sure that they could be prominently selected. Like, number one, it's actually pretty good that they don't have to have that, because like at that point, yeah, it is pretty pointless. But it's honestly also pretty good that like now everybody in that branch can actually go and vote for Best Animated Feature. Like, the more voices that we got for people who have seen all the movies, then definitely the better. Like, it would definitely be great, and at least we don't have to go into like a small niche group. And like, if we do have everyone on board, including like some of the old masters and stuff like that, then yeah, that would definitely be a good viable option, and maybe it could help spice things up, especially for the category of Best Animated Feature. And one comment that I would like to add, this especially goes to the Best Short Films category, because honestly, there's something that I find to be really funny on that. Because the thing is that despite the fact that they say that, okay, now you can have the option to go and show it either in New York or Los Angeles, they still have to put in Rule 2. And Rule 2, basically, it means that you must show it in Los Angeles. You must have at least a specific running time for your short film to air in Los Angeles, and that's it. So basically the thing is that now rule, like the new rule and the new way that you can apply for a short film category is the fact that now you can enter in and you don't have to have the option of also showing your thing in New York. Yeah, Los Angeles is a must, but now they don't have to necessarily show their thing in New York in order to be eligible for the category. So yeah, I do find it to be pretty funny here that at first it seems like they want to try to phrase it as, oh, now you can have the option, either New York or Los Angeles. But in reality, no. If you want to get a nomination, if you want the chance to have a nomination, then you have to show it in Los Angeles County. It's not like, because the irony of it, because technically, according to this rule, you can apply if you show it just in New York. But if you don't show it in Los Angeles, then you can't get a nomination because of that rule too. So yeah, that's the thing. It's basically to say that, yeah, now the whole general idea for the short film category is that you don't have to show it in New York as well. But yeah, and also what I find to be interesting is that when I do see, it's not necessarily for best animated feature or best short film, it's when you would go and check out for the new things that they have stated for best international feature film, which we can't really say best foreign language film, which, by the way, just gotta get a quote here from Larry Kara. Oh my god, what the fridge kind of name is this? Larry Kawazewski and Diane Weierman, which they are the co-chairs of the International Feature Film Committee. They have actually got a quote here stating that, "We have noted that the reference to foreign is outdated with the global filming community. We believe that international feature film better represents this category and promotes a positive and inclusive view of filmmaking and the art of film as a universal experience." But one thing that I do feel that is kind of interesting, and even though it is kind of rare, is actually the fact that they would add in the mention of the fact that animated features and documentary pictures, they're allowed to be nominated. So it actually is kind of possible, like, if Studio Ghibli would release their next animated film, like the next Hayao Miyazaki movie that's going to be coming up later in a few years, they can technically take that film and they can put it in Best Foreign Picture and have that be represented for Japan. But the thing is that it is true that I do feel like, yeah, that thing has been on there for a while. Like, it's just, the thing is that not many people have necessarily taken advantage of the factor that you can put in a documentary film or an animated film to be represented in Best Foreign Picture. And so far, it has only happened once in history that an animated film was a contender for Best International Feature Film. And if you remember all the way back, I think it was like in 2012 or something like that, where it was Waltz with Bashir, which, by the way, I love Waltz with Bashir. It's a phenomenal film, and if you haven't seen it, please go and check it out. It's absolutely amazing. And technically, the funny thing with Waltz with Bashir, it would technically count in both, that it's an animated film and also a documentary film that found itself in the Best International Feature Film category. But since then, we have yet to really see any other country actually go and try to take advantage, that they would take an animated film and try to represent that for Best International Feature Film. I mean, there is a chance that maybe in the future we'll see them do that they will take advantage. Maybe France could take like a movie like My Life as a Zucchini and they would put it for Best Foreign Picture, just like they did for Best Animated Feature. But honestly, like, it could, like, honestly, if that rule has always been there, the fact that you can also submit an animated film and a documentary film, then at that point, like, I don't think that we'll see much change. Even though I would feel like it would be really cool if we would actually see more of an animation presence in Best Foreign Language Film. Especially the fact that if it would also mean that it would give a far bigger chance for, it would give a bigger chance for international animated features and independent animated films to actually win in that category so that they could actually walk out in an Oscar. Like, let's be honest, it's going to be extremely rare or like a once in a lifetime opportunity that we would ever see a film that's not made by one of the big major animation studios in America actually win one, you know? Like, so far, it looks like it's only going to be Spirited Away, and that's it. But if they would also take their chance in Best Foreign Language Film, that would honestly be epic. That we would also see movies like, like you think back of the previous independent animated features that did get nominated, stuff like My Life as a Zucchini or Mirai, or what the fridge else was there? I'm trying to think, or Boy in the World, or Chico and Rita. Like, imagine if some of those films would actually get nominated and they would actually win the Oscar. Like, that would actually be epic. Imagine how people would actually feel when we would actually hear that an independent animated feature, finally, they would get a chance to win an Oscar. But honestly, if that rule has always been there in the first place, which, like, we kind of saw some proof with Waltz with Bashir, then maybe we're not going to see that much change. But honestly, overall, I do feel optimistic about these changes. They actually do see this be pretty good, actually. I feel like, honestly, this is pretty optimistic. I feel like this could be some changes for the better, and it would be a little bit, like, honestly, we might see a little bit more positive changes for the animation categories, like Best Animated Short and Best Animated Feature. And honestly, they might, like, some people could say that they could be just minor stories, but honestly, this is pretty good. I feel like this is actually some nice changes. It's nice to see some small good changes from the Oscars instead of, like, stupid bad changes, like last time with the whole Best Popular Film category and all that kind of stuff. So at least we did get something out of this. So honestly, these are some nice changes. And just a bit of a heads up that for the next Oscars, it looks like we are going to be getting it a lot earlier than usual, because usually when it comes to the Oscars, they would be released either in the beginning of May or at the end of February. But this time, it looks like the next Oscars is going to be up on February 9th, 2020. So just mark your calendars on that if you are interested in the Oscars, of course. But yeah, this does seem pretty interesting. But yeah, so yeah, overall, these are some pretty nice positive changes. Okay, so with that said, though, I would like to go into the chat wall. And honestly, I would like to ask you guys, what do you all think about the changes for the Oscars? What do you think about these Oscar changes? Do you think this is pretty good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think these are all right? Let me know what you think. All right, let's see now. I think it's pretty cool that the Academy is doing this. At least they're admitting the medium is becoming more prominent at this day and age in the world of cinema. It makes me happy that more animated indie films will be able to have a spotlight, whether they are nominated for Best Animated Feature or the newly titled Best International Feature Film. It's about time the Academy made a good change for the Oscars, so bless my soul, Herc is on a roll. Oh, that's nice. Apparently and also I saw in a previous comment that someone did state that My Life as a Zucchini actually did get into the Best International Film shortlist before. Oh, that's so. At least it is good to know that. Well, at least they are trying. If some did make it in the shortlist, at least I'll be optimistic about it, and I'll see that as, like, they are showing it. It is actually pretty good. Let's see. What else have we got? Want to know why voters are always convinced that animation is for kids? Is because all of the For Your Consideration campaigns that practically bribe voters to influence their thoughts and feelings on what they should vote, either with money or prizes. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised that some voters are in it for the prize they get and not the movies. I mean, like, For Your Consideration, I mean, it's not just, like, if that would be the case, then let's be honest, that wouldn't be just for Best Animated Feature. Then, like, at that point, like, if they do this for Best Animated Feature, they would also do that for plenty of others as well. Okay, let's see now. Let's see. I wouldn't be surprised if they change their minds on these choices, since the Oscars is run by pathological liars who care more about the money than good quality. I bet during the 2020 Academy Awards they won't change their animated feature category, and all animated films are clumped together. In fact, speaking of Oscars, Adam Conover did a video exposing what goes on behind the scenes at award shows. Oh boy, I feel like we're almost going in, like at that point, I feel like we're almost going to be going into the territory of like Inside Job. Like this is the things that probably people like Shion Takeuchi or Alex Hirsch are watching this, and they're probably listening and hearing comments like that going, oh, that would be a great episode, you know, talking about award shows. I mean, I'm not stating that you're wrong, but honestly, like, with conspiracy theories like that, I mean, that's almost like what we were talking about with the element of, like, possibly having a commentary on people like Alex Jones on the Netflix series, you know? But anyways, is there a chance that we're going to get an animated film nominated for Best Picture in the future? That animated film has to be, like, freaking legendary. So, honestly, I really don't know. Honestly, good luck with that. And I mean, like, if we are going to see an animated film be nominated for Best Picture, then that would mean they would also have to be nominated for several other awards as well. It would have to be, like, in the late 2000s or in the early 2010s when we see Pixar being nominated for like 5-6 Oscars altogether. So we would have to wait and see on that. All right. Oh, we got another one. I really like the idea of foreign animated films to be able to compete for Best Foreign Language Film category. It would really give other animated films a better chance to win something versus the usual Best Animated Feature category where it usually goes to an American movie, which that would win. Okay, so I think with all that said, we are pretty much all good with this story right over here. And now we are going to go and end this off with the grand finale. Yes, it will be our final story of today, and this one will be a bit of a bonus miscellaneous. And we're going to be going back a lot more into the sci-fi stuff, considering that we started things out with Star Trek. Why not go and cap this off with some Star Wars? And I know it sounds a little bit concerning, because the thing is that this does have a bit of a controversy element into it. But I will say this, though. When it comes to this controversy, it's not the kind that really is serious and dives into some major social issues like misogyny or racism or stuff like that. Maybe just a tad bit, but this is like not the kind that's upsetting, but more the kind that is rather it's strange. I think that's the best way to put it. You know, it's a weird controversy, but you'll understand when I get into this. And this is going to be regarding a Star Wars comic. Yes, apparently recently there was a comic out there that's stirring a bit of controversy so far. And this comic is called Darth Vader Dark Visions number 3. Now, when it comes to Darth Vader Dark Visions, for those of you who don't know, Dark Visions is a comic series that would take a look at who is Darth Vader from the perspective of other people around him. Now, this could be like random individuals, rather be someone working in the Death Star, a prominent figure of the Empire, or someone in the Rebel. Like maybe like a Rebel warrior is looking at Darth Vader and they kind of view him as like the Grim Reaper. Or maybe someone who works at the Empire, or someone who works at the Death Star kind of sees him as a bit of a tyrannical boss. Or maybe you'll have someone who views him just like, not necessarily as like a monster or anything like that, but just like a freaking dick. He's just like, you know, they would look at him and he's like, yeah, that guy's kind of a jerk. But in this case right over here, for the 3rd issue of Dark Visions, they would be taking the look, they would be giving the perspective to an unnamed nurse. And this nurse doesn't view him as a tyrant or as a monster, or as a jerk, or anything negative. In fact, what's interesting to note is that the title of this issue is called Tall, Dark, and Handsome, which means that this nurse is in love with Darth Vader. She adores the crap out of him, like literally sees Darth Vader as the love of his life. Now, I just want to put up a big disclaimer before I continue with this story. The big thing with this is that, honestly, I have yet to actually read Darth Vader Dark Visions number 3, so keep in mind that when it comes to the whole controversy and stuff like that, this is going to be from the perspective of an outsider. So this is from someone who has yet to actually read the comic and is just observing, like, the whole controversy that's stirring up. So just bear in mind on that. I love Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars fan, but I've yet to actually read this thing. So anyways, now to continue, yes, this story would go and focus on this nurse who is just so madly in love with Darth Vader. And when I mean madly in love, it really is an emphasis on madly, because she is pretty much freaking insane. And also, on a side note, nobody seems to love her. Like, it's almost as if everyone in the freaking galaxy hates this woman in particular. Darth Vader hates her, her superiors hate her boss hates her, everyone in the Death Star hates her, everyone in the Empire hates her, even the comic itself hates her. The way that they portray this woman is less as a hopeless romantic, but more as a freaking lunatic. Just this crazy girl. Yeah, the freaking comic, like, even the narrator is godforsaken, very pessimistic about this woman. It was like, oh, for God's sake. It's almost like the comic itself picked up this story. It's like, oh, God, we got to do a story about her? Like, we got to do it about her? Oh, for God's sake, she's a nutcase. Do we have to? Okay, fine, all right, let's do this. And the thing is that, yeah, this nurse, she is often portrayed as, like, the psychotic lover. And you guys probably know about the archetype of the psychotic lover. And in a way, probably a great example would be, like, Harley Quinn in the Batman series, or just in Batman in general. And with her, she would be the kind that, like, in her room, she would have, like, this entire wall, which is a whole shrine dedicated to this one person. You know, like, when people are madly in love with someone and they would have this whole shrine that in which their walls are literally filled with just pictures of that one individual, and, like, they would be collecting some of their things, like, oh my God, it's their pencil, I must keep it in my collection. And she actually does the same thing. She would actually collect whatever she can that directly belongs to Darth Vader. She would keep it as, like, a loving memory of Darth Vader. And from there, like, she would keep, like, literally everything, rather it be, like, little tears of some of his clothes, or, like, little pieces of some of his armor, or even, like, flesh that's been, like, cut out of him by a lightsaber. She would keep it and have it be a part of her collection. And as I previously stated before, this is a story where literally everyone hates her. And, like, she would be treated pretty badly from there, where they would go and, like, even some of her bosses would, like, take her stuff, notice her crazy obsession, take what she has, like her Darth Vader collection, and throw it in the trash, where she would be insane enough to actually jump in that trash and actually collect the pieces back so that she can actually keep it. And, of course, with this kind of story, right at the end, spoiler alert, by the way, so major spoilers, but, of course, right at the end, she would actually have her opportunity where she does meet Darth Vader, where she's in her dream scenario that she is in a room alone with Darth Vader himself. And as an added bonus, she actually does get to see Darth Vader without the mask, so she can actually see his eyes and see the flesh that is on his face. And how did Darth Vader react? Lightsaber to the chest, plops out dead, and Darth Vader calls out, "Can somebody get rid of this garbage?" And by the way, that's not actually off. He kind of says something like that at the end of the story. So, yeah, so that's basically the whole story. It's basically this cautionary tale of this lunatic who's just flat out obsessed with Darth Vader. In fact, in my source here in IO9, it actually says it best about the whole story, where it says right over here, it's hardly a magnanimous end for the nurse, but tall, dark, and handsome is hardly magnanimous to her as a character. She isn't painted as a sympathetic figure, but as a deranged lunatic, looked down upon by the world around her, and that the world is right to do so, for her self-destructive delusion. Even in the fantasies where she is given a position of imagined strength, it rings hollow. It's less a love story and more of a dire warning about obsession, one that feels like it mocks its protagonist as much as the people around her. So that's basically the main thing about this story. It's not necessarily a love story, but a cautionary tale about, like the article said right over here, it's a cautionary tale about obsession. How you would end up in an environment that just drives you mad, and like if you focus too much on the love of one person, then it could just make you go purely insane, just like what happened to her. And you won't necessarily get a happy ending because you won't face reality. You're just lost in your delusional fantasies, which is also another element in this story right over here, is the fact that we would often see her have these little fantasies where she would be in total romance with Darth Vader and about to kiss and all that kind of stuff. So, with that said though, now that we are a little bit familiar with this story, the question remains though, what is it that is so controversial about this comic in particular? What is it that's sparking so much controversy? Well, at that point, it's actually caused by the portrayal of the woman herself. Because there are some readers, especially female readers of these Star Wars comics, who kind of took it a bit of the wrong way, and they felt like the comic is kind of mocking the fans who are in love with the villains, who are in love with characters like, like Kylo Ren or Anakin Skywalker when he's a bad boy before fully becoming Darth Vader and all that kind of stuff. That is mostly mocking the Star Wars shippers and the hopeless romantics of the Star Wars fan base. Now, from there, it's stated here that the creators themselves, and the people who were involved with this comic in particular, that they have defended the comic, that they don't, like, their goal is not necessarily to mock anybody in the fan base, but rather to actually do portray, ironically enough, the nurse as the hero of the comic, where she was just trapped in this highly fascist far-right environment where, like, the only way that she could set herself free is to be romantically in love with possibly the biggest and most powerful authority figure in the entire area that she is in the Death Star, which is Darth Vader. And from there, they would try to keep on defending, and it did spark a little bit of controversy and continued on from there, and some people kind of add into that mess as well. And on top of that, is there any other commentaries? Yeah, but also, it even stated, like, here's another thing, that what's also another thing that stoked the controversy about the story even further is that Chuck Wedding, the writer who apparently was involved with another canceled story, another canceled Star Wars comic that's close to Dark Visions called Shadow of Vader when it was first announced, despite having already written multiple issues before the entire book was canceled and replaced with the similar premise Dark Visions, also took on Twitter to make the comment. The author revealed that in Shadow, there would have been a similar tale from a male perspective, framed as a commentary not on female obsession, but on toxic masculinity. So that's pretty much the big thing right over here. the fact that this controversial story, some people kind of took it the wrong way, and they feel like this comic is more of a jab towards Star Wars fans, or like a niche group of Star Wars fans, more so than anything. So that's pretty much the big story about this Star Wars comic. And honestly, when reading this controversy and what this is all about, and reading about dark visions and all that kind of stuff, honestly, I'm at the point where I look at this and I feel like I am not surprised that this is happening whatsoever. Because the big thing to emphasize here is that we really are at a point with the Star Wars fan base, or like, we're pretty much at the point with Star Wars culture, it has gotten so massively big that literally anything can happen. That we literally have all different kinds of fans who believe in anything and everything. And we are also at the point where theories are just flying around. And I'll get to those two aspects in a bit. Because here's the thing. I'll start off one at a time. And let me go and just talk about the element regarding the fans. About the fans themselves. Now, like I said, there are all different kinds of Star Wars fans out there. And that they would believe in their own different ideologies regarding the movies and regarding certain characters as well. And of course, you would have those people who would have romantic feelings when it comes to certain Star Wars characters. And some are more prominent, and some, well, they could be just little crushes, or they could be in the minority about how they feel about certain characters. But there's no surprise whatsoever of the fact that, of course, there are some female fans that would absolutely adore the villains as well. That they would be in love with characters such as Kylo Ren, Count Dooku, Darth Maul. You would probably have some old ladies that love Emperor Palpatine as well. Like, while the kids are watching Star Wars, grandma would be on the side just watching Palpatine talking and stuff like that and go, I would like that boy to execute Order 69 on me. And then, of course, yes, there are some people who are in love with Darth Vader. Maybe not to the extremes of the freaky nurse over here, but there are some people who do have general crushes. And I mean, it's not necessarily that surprising because, of course, like, when it comes to female fans and having crushes on villains, that's perfectly common. Because no matter on which fan base that you're in, you'll find people who love villains everywhere. And they'll love, like, the guy villains and see them more, kind of like as the hero who will save them more so than, like, the actual hero themselves, you know. Especially when it comes to Disney, I know there are girls out there who are madly in love with some of the villains. Rather it be like with Jafar, where they wish they could be in the position of Jasmine. Gaston, where they wish they could be like one of the Bin Bets, just madly in love with Gaston. And I know for a fact there's a huge Frollo fan base. I know there are girls out there who are just madly in love with Frollo. And also on a side note, it doesn't just limit to Disney as well, but yeah, there are, of course, like, plenty of other villains. But yeah, also, that's what I wanted to say. Because the thing is that, yeah, there are a lot of girls who love guy villains and, like, romantically love guy villains. And by the way, keep in mind, guys, you ain't running away because, the thing is, I know that you are equally guilty when it comes to some villainesses. That you would have massive, like, legitimate crushes on girl villains as well. Rather it be like Ares from Sinbad, or like a recent popular one is Dr. Octavia from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, or even like some of the Disney ones. Like, I know that there are people out there who have a crush on, like, Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. No, not the Angelina Jolie, like, legitimately, like, Maleficent played by Eleanor Audley in the 1959 animated film. Like, I know there are guys who think that she's, like, legitimately hot and debatably has more beauty than the actual Sleeping Beauty. And I know there are also guys out there who love Ursula, that they got the hots for Ursula. And I don't necessarily mean about Ursula in her sexy human form as Vanessa. No. I mean like the original short white-haired Ursula with purple skin and like the octopus legs and everything. Like when they see her, like they love that thickness, and that's when they put on their Moto mode and they go like, I like 'em big, I like 'em funky, I like 'em big, I like 'em chunky. You know they are like that. You know there are some people who have a crush on villainesses. Oh, and massive case in point, we recently saw a prominent example with Bowsette, how there are some guys who just love the bad girl aesthetic. Oh, and by the way, on a side note, I just would like to add, yeah, the LGBT community, they don't get away with this either. Oh man, I know LGBT people, like, they also are massively guilty when it comes to loving some of these villains. So no one is guilty of this. But going back into this subject matter, yeah, it definitely is true that, of course, there would be some people who are madly in love with Darth Vader, that they actually do think that, like, oh, I wish Darth Vader would be my husband and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, the possibilities are endless. And yeah, there are some people in the Star Wars fan base, they would be in love with Darth Vader. And on that aspect, I don't necessarily blame them that they would have that kind of perspective. Because again, considering how the culture of Star Wars has gotten so huge, we're pretty much at the point where when they do see that, like, when they do see like an official Star Wars story, like, they would be theorizing literally everything. Like, considering that we're at the point that literally thousands of officially licensed Star Wars stories are out there, then you bet there are going to be people who are going to take each and every single one of these little stories and try to dissect the living crap out of it to know its meaning, to know every element, to know every single thing that exists in there mechanically or organically. And on top of that, you know the fact that they are going to bring out so many different theories. And I mean, like, you just bring out one new Star Wars thing and people will go and examine that thing for hours. You guys remember not too long ago how Rise of Skywalker, the teaser trailer, that just got released, and the theories just went flying about every single scene that we just saw, every little element, even the title itself of The Rise of Skywalker. It has so many people talking about the scenario. And people theorizing that this could be a jab at some Star Wars fans, well, I mean, that it could highly be possible, because technically it is true. It's not necessarily the first time that we have witnessed that. Case in point, look at Kylo Ren, possibly the most prominent example of all this. Because the thing with Kylo Ren is that a lot of people have theorized that he is kind of like the living metaphor of the modern Star Wars fan. How they're too personally attached to the past and that they want to try to really recreate the past, and if things don't necessarily go their way, then they get really short-tempered and they will destroy everything in sight. And this theory, unfortunately, has been proven to be a lot more true since we've seen a lot more angry and easily triggered Star Wars fans, especially regarding the case of The Last Jedi, when that film got released and you got like a little minority group of Star Wars people that are so frustrated about the mere existence, where they become so destructive, and it would lead them to go and cause some misogynistic and racist attacks, especially towards people like Kelly Marie Tran or Daisy Ridley and other people in the cast like Oscar Isaac or John Boyega and whomever. Like, no matter what, they would go and attack. And whenever, like nowadays, whenever you would see someone say that they hate the recent Star Wars movies for SJW reasons, when they say SJW reasons, that's pretty much code for they hate the fact that more people of color and more women are like more the stars of the whole series than straight white males. That's what they're frustrated about. And that's why, like, a minority of Star Wars groups are kind of getting a bad rap because of their racism, because of their misogyny and their hatred towards all women. But that's the thing. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that maybe Star Wars would continue to do something like this, and maybe this could be a bit of a jab towards the romantic people of Star Wars, like the shippers and the people who literally love certain characters of all that. Now, honestly, for me, I feel like in this scenario, I do see both sides of the situation, where honestly, on one end, I do understand that when it comes to the creators of the comic, that is totally not their intention. They did not want to go and try to attack anybody related to their views on certain characters, on whom they love and stuff like that. Like, I'm sure that's not out of the realm of possibilities. And also, again, considering that we are in an age where we literally have thousands of official Star Wars stories, about one of them is going to be a story like this, where we do have a psychotic lover coming into the scene. And I would not be necessarily surprised if if she's not the only character that is like that in the Star Wars universe. Like, maybe we've already seen a character that's like this somewhere in something like Clone Wars, or in one of the books, or in one of the older comics and stuff like that. You never know. That could be a possibility. But then on the other hand, considering that we are in an age where, like, the Star Wars culture is as big as the Earth itself, the possibilities are pretty much endless. And considering that, like, there are so many different kinds of people and so many different people who love certain characters, and that theories are so easily spreaded like wildfire, then of course, like, it wouldn't be surprising that some people would come to a conclusion of this. You know, it is a strange controversy that we are seeing developing with this comic itself. Not necessarily as big as the backlash that some people have given towards The Last Jedi and stuff like that. This is, like, honestly, by Star Wars standards, this is kind of minor, but it is still a very interesting controversy to see develop, as it does go into the subject matter of people who have crushes on villains. And honestly, like, it is a group, like, I know it is a very niche group of people, but we know for a fact that it is a group of people that does exist. And considering how this controversy is pretty prominent, honestly, like, for me, I feel like the people who do love villains, and I want to say right now, if you actually do love villains, whether it be someone like Maleficent, or if it is Darth Vader and stuff like that, it's perfectly fine. Whatever fictional crush that you would have, you shouldn't necessarily be ashamed of them. Like, I know, like, with villains, it is kind of like a bit of iffy territory, especially with the fact that, like, they are villains, they are evil, and but then again, from there, like, I do understand the appeal of, like, the bad boy or bad girl aesthetic. And I mean, even with me, I will admit, maybe I do have a few villain crushes, and, like, if there would be, like, a villainess, like, who would try something romantic with me and stuff like that, maybe I'll be down with that. But yeah, overall though, like, honestly, I just want to say, don't be ashamed or don't let anyone tell you otherwise if you have a villain crush. Like, it's perfectly fine. And, like, even with this comic, like, don't let that bother you. If you are in love with a certain Star Wars character, whether it be like Kylo Ren or Darth Vader or freaking, I don't know, Jabba the Hutt, if you're into that kind of thing, like, honestly, don't let that stop you. Like, as long as you're not hurting anyone else with that kind of crush, as long as you're not behaving like this freaking crazy nurse, then it's all good, man. Like, honestly, if your crush thing makes you happy, then go nuts with it. Okay, so I think with all that said and done, I would like to go into the chat wall. I know this is a bit of a mouthful, but I want to know what you guys think about this whole controversy. Do you think this one is a little bit crazy? Do you go towards a certain side? Do you side with the creators that it's not that controversial? Or do you side with the fans where you feel like, yeah, this deserves this kind of backlash? Do you feel a bit offended? I want to know, what do you all think about this controversy? Okay, let's see now. Also, I just want to get rid of some trolls right over here. There we go. Actually, hold on. There we go. All right, just want to... Yeah, I think this will work. Okay, anyways. Now that we are back over here, I want to know, do we have any comments? I just want to see. Yes, okay, we do. All right, going back to this. Let's see. It looks like, well, that is, yeah. Well, to think at some point there could be, at some point, to actually like him outside of Padme, but never in this comic will be like the Mad Love comic. In other words, I've never... Oh, what is it? Okay, yeah, this is worded like that. There could be anyone who would be as crazy as Harley Quinn. Oh my gosh, imagine that in a cartoon voiced by Tara Strong, it would be like, they're trying to go for that. Well, I still hardly think this should be a thing. Oh my god. Like, I can imagine if they would do an animated short, like, fully based on on Tall, Dark, and Handsome, like, oh my, I could imagine Tara Strong could give out, like, a pretty epic performance. Like, honestly, I feel like she would give out something that's pretty amazing. Like, that would be pretty cool. Let's see. You know what's even funny? That girl character who's in love with Darth Vader, it's kind of like the Star Wars equivalent of Amy Rose, only this time Amy Rose is in love with Dr. Eggman. It's like that. Yeah, I can definitely see your perspective on it. Yeah, I could definitely... Yeah, I can understand how your point of view, that she can be a bit like Amy, like just crazy in love with Sonic. Let's see. The girl in the comic honestly deserves to be killed by Darth Vader for being obsessed with him. It's like flirting with Genghis Khan. It's not going to end well. Also, my cartoon villainess crush is Blackfire from Teen Titans, Poison Ivy, and Lord Dominator from Wander Over Yonder. Sorry about that. Yeah, honestly, well, yeah, honestly, when it comes, yeah, interestingly enough, Lord Dominator does have a bit of a fan base that, like, I've seen some people do have a crush on Lord Dominator, but yeah, wow, I'm surprised you even have a whole list of, actual villainess crushes. Wow. Oh, boy. Okay, so, yeah, I think with all that said, we should be pretty good with this news. With all that said, we are pretty much done, and it should be time that I would go and let you guys off with your little day. So, with all that said and done, I just would like to say thank you all so much for listening, and thank you so much for watching, and, ooh, excuse me. Oh, that came out a little bit weird, but anyways, as I was saying, hopefully you will all join me back for next week for more crazy animation news and more major things that we're gonna go and discuss about. I'm sure for the next episode it's gonna get pretty nuts. So I would like to say though, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, see you later, dudes!